Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. Today we have another lesson in Mega Goal 6. But before we start it, let's take a quick recap of the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we started talking about the meaning of the title of this unit, Lost and Found. We said that usually the lessons that we are going to have, or the lessons we have in each unit, revolves around the title or the theme of this unit. In this unit we have lost and found, so we're going to have a lot of stories about people who lost things and found them, and other stories about lucky people who stumbled upon treasures. And today we are going to focus on writing and also learning how to write an essay about something that you have lost, then found. But before that, let's revise the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we started with the vocabulary building. We had 6 words on the left side and 6 definitions, synonyms, and also explanations. We talked about the first one, which is accustomed. We said that when you are regularly do something, that means you are accustomed to it. Number 2, appraiser is a person who determines the value of things. Number 3, astronomer, a person who is interested in the space and other things like that, stars, and so on. Number 4, authentic means real things, original things. Number 5, stumble upon is finding something by chance. The last word, number 6, wedged, means stuck between two things, and the answers as shown here in this slide. After that, we went to the reading part, and we've talked in the reading part about some of the reading techniques. We've said that it's good before you start reading anything to ask yourself about what you are going to read. Try to predict what's the content going to be, and try to connect this content with previous things that you have read or experienced in your life. Another thing is that try to put some questions that could help you see the things in different perspective, or make you understand the material you are going to read in a better and more profound way. The lesson that was Look What I Found. In this lesson, we've listened to many stories about people who were lucky enough to stumble upon treasures that worth millions of dollars. Today, we have a writing lesson on page 20. On page 20, we have a writing lesson. In this writing lesson, we are going to read together a story of a person who lost his bag, then found it. And we will try to learn some of the techniques that he has used to give information about, or to tell us about the story or the incident he had experienced. Then after that, we will learn how to start writing our own essay, focusing on things or stories for ourselves or for people we know where we or they lost things, then found them. But before that, we have some questions here. We have 6 questions, and some of these questions has many parts. For example, number 1, have you ever lost a piece of luggage during or after a trip? What would you do if you discovered that you had lost your suitcase? Number 2, do you think lost luggage is eventually found or not? Please give reasons. Number 3, what would you do to avoid losing it? Number 4, read the title of the text below. It doesn't tell you what happened, but raises some questions. For example, when do you think someone might be thinking or saying this? What kind of story do you expect to read about? Number 5, read the personal narrative below and find out What is the writer's occupation? Do you know anything about his age or appearance? What kind of person do you imagine he is? Where did the incident take place? What kind of state do you think the writer was in? How do you know? Could you predict the ending before you got to it? Why and why not? How do you think the writer felt at the end? What would you have done and why? All these are questions. Let's take the first 4 questions, for example. These 4 questions just activate your prior knowledge, your prior experience, and refresh your mind so you can be ready to read or to delve into this story. After that, we have on number 5 and number 6 some questions regarding the content of the story. So try to answer the first 4 questions by your own. After that, we will read the story together. Then you can answer number 5 and number 6 by your own, comparing your thoughts or comparing or predicting some answers for some of the questions. For example, what is the writer's occupation? It's not written, but you can predict his occupation concerning his trips and his busy schedule and so on. Now let's go to this page or to this part and read or listen to this story together. I want you to pick up your pen, annotate if necessary, and also pay close attention to the paragraphs. In each paragraph, he is talking about something. For example, he is giving in the first paragraph an overview about his situation. After that, he talks or he gets into the details. Then also he talks about his feelings when he lost the luggage and how he felt during that time and how he found it and so on. So I want you to go through this essay, putting in your mind how he has dedicated each paragraph to talk about something, so you can do the same or even better. Now let's listen to the story.
Page 90. 10. Writing.
Had I really lost it? I had just gotten back from a business trip in China. I had been working very hard for a week, trying to make the most of my time there. I had meetings every day, wrote proposals and reports, discussed options with my associates, and so on. In other words, I was exhausted. I had had a long but comfortable flight, during which I had been unable to relax because I kept thinking of the backlog waiting for me at work. All kinds of pending issues surged into my mind and started swirling about. I tried to push them back, but with little success. When we landed, I made up my mind to drive to the office first, deal with any urgent matters, and then go home. I headed for the carousel to wait for my luggage. I just followed the crowd and stood by with a trolley, waiting for my suitcase to appear. People kept on picking up their luggage and walking away, and I kept on waiting and getting more and more stressed. Eventually, the carousel stopped. I was told that there was no more luggage. I could not believe it. I had even packed a new laptop in my suitcase to avoid carrying it. I rushed to the information desk, all worked up, ready for a fight. The person in charge was used to dealing with upset passengers, so he explained what the procedure was and offered to take me to the service that dealt with lost items, where I would have to fill out a form with all my details. He assured me that, in most cases, the luggage was eventually recovered. On the way, we walked past another carousel with some suitcases lined up alongside it. I caught a glimpse of a familiar sticker through the corner of my eye. When I stopped to check, I realized that I had found my suitcase. I had been waiting at the wrong carousel.
Okay, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. We have 5 paragraphs, and each paragraph is dedicated to talk about something. For example, in the first paragraph, he was talking about his situation, his life in general. He said that he was getting back from a business trip in China and he was exhausted and so on. So this is just a general, or this is an overview about his situation. After that, he started getting into the details. He talked about his flight and how he was trying to get out of the airplane and so on. Then, in the third part, we have the main point of the story. He talked about the moment where he lost or thought that he lost his luggage. He said here that I headed for the carousel. This is a carousel. The line where all the suitcases and luggage are put so people can come and pick them. After that, he talked about his emotions, his feelings during that time. He said that people kept on picking up their luggage and walking away, and I kept on waiting and getting more and more stressed. Also here he said I was exhausted. Eventually the carousel stopped. I was told that there was no more luggage. I couldn't believe it. This is also another expression of his feelings. I had even packed a new laptop in my suitcase to avoid carrying it. I rushed to information desk. I rushed. He didn't say I went, I rushed. That means he was in rush. He was trying to do everything quickly. All worked up, ready for a fight. This is also another expression for his feeling and his expressions. So once we write about something, or once we tell a story, it's better to involve our feelings, or we talk about how we felt during that time, because that makes our story more vivid. Okay, the person in charge was used to dealing with the upset passengers. Here he talked about how the problem was solved and he found his luggage eventually. Now let's go to the next part. On B, we have 3 points. Number 1, write a personal narrative about something important that you have lost and or found. Okay, so now you have to go brainstorm, try to think about any item or anything that you have lost and found. Okay, number 2, before you begin writing, use a chart to outline. This is a chart to outline the events of the story in the order that they happened. So here in the chart, you start writing about the situation, about that day, or the time before the moment of losing the item. Okay? Then after that, go through the details of losing that item. What is the next thing? When did you realize that you have lost that item? Okay? How did you deal with that experiment? And finally, what happened? Have you found what you have lost or not? How did you find it? Did anyone help you find that item or not? Okay? Also try to write on the right side your feelings and attitude, how you behaved, how you felt during that time. Okay? Try to accompany the feeling or your feeling at each one of these moments. Number 3, write your personal narrative describing what happened. Give as many details as you can about the experience. So after you write or you fill the chart with the steps of losing or starting from the moment or the moment before losing the item until the moment of finding it and after, and considering your feelings and attitude at each stage during this experience. We have here, how did you lose that? This is an example of a story of someone who lost his laptop. It's an example that you can read, and maybe it's going to be beneficial for you because we have an example that you can you can use this technique, so you can write your own narrative essay. For example, in the beginning or in the first paragraph, the story I'm about to tell is an embarrassing one. It happened in 2009, which I will always remember as the year when I lost my laptop. That's right, I lost my 17-inch laptop. It wasn't stolen, I lost it. So this is the beginning of the story. He's giving an overview about what happened, the time, the place, and also the feeling. So he says that it is an embarrassing one. And he then goes on, or she goes on, with telling the story about, or the story that, or the event that he or she has experienced. At the end, we have in the writing corner some advices or some tips that will help you write your own personal narrative. For example, number 1, use devices that can make your story more vivid. Number 2, include parts where you are thinking aloud and revealing your thoughts or predicament. For example, when we read a story about someone or the person who had lost or thought that he lost his luggage in the airport, he said that I was ready for a fight. So he was talking about, or he was explaining his emotions and his feelings or attitude during that time. You can reveal your thoughts or predicament. Number 3, address direct questions to the reader, such as, who would think of such a thing? Number 4, vary the pace of your story depending on the events and the feelings or mood involved. Number 5, notice that you don't need to state everything explicitly. Some developments or thoughts are naturally understood by the reader. So don't say everything because that will make your story dull. Okay? Some of the things or some of the events, even if they are not mentioned in your essay, they will be understood because the idea is implied within the context. For example, number 1, identify all the acts or thoughts that are implied and understood by the reader in the last lines of the model essay and write them. I stopped walking toward the service desk where I was going to fill out a form for my lost luggage. Now, we are here having an example of writing the details of what happened. The person who told us his story didn't say that, but we understood that. Now we will try to write all the details that he didn't mention to see how that makes the story boring, okay? I stopped walking toward the service desk where I was going to fill out a form for my lost luggage. You can say, I walked toward the suitcase that, or I stopped walking towards the service desk where I was going to fill out a form for my lost luggage. I walked toward the suitcase that someone had lined alongside the carousel. I stopped to check the sticker on one. It was my sticker, which meant that the suitcase was mine. Here we are mentioning all the details. We are making the story so boring. Number 2, what is the effect on the reader when everything is stated or even restated explicitly? The reader gets bored and can see very little purpose in the reading. After that, after you finish writing your own personal narrative, you can check the workbook on page 64. You have here another example where you asked to write an informational essay about an important discovery. Here, in the chart, as you can see, we have the name of the discovery and some of the criteria that you can go through. For example, number 1, what was found? Describe it. Name the things. Where and how was it discovered? Number 3, when and how was it lost or hidden? The last one, what makes it important or unique? You can answer the questions in this chart. Then after that, start writing your informational essay. This is the last part of our lesson today. Thank you all for attending and listening, and I wish you enjoy the rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum.